Really, Pastor Lenny Duncan needs no introduction. He, as you know, is author of 2 books. One, Dear Church, a love letter from a Black preacher to the whitest denomination in the United States. And more recently, United States of Grace, a memoir of homelessness, addiction, incarceration, and hope. He describes himself as a follower of Jesus Christ in a passionate love affair with grace. Lenny spent most of his teens homeless after leaving home at age 13. He has spent time in all 48 contiguous states, sleeping by the side of the highway or in penthouses along the way. He's been a prisoner of war in the so-called war on drugs. After systemic oppression or drugs didn't kill him, Lenny found himself in a strange place, the church. Lenny has been everything from high school dropout, drug dealer, sex worker, street corner poet, hitchhiker, Dharma bum, small town drifter, seminarian, political activist, father, pastor, lover, public theologian, and writer. And he now thrives in the Pacific Northwest. Lenny Duncan is always agitational, brilliant, faithful, and inviting us into places of discomfort. So unmute yourselves if you would, and let's give a rousing round of applause to Lenny Duncan. Thank you for being with us.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. I find bios so strange, right? And the need and credentialing, right? But if it wasn't for credentialing, how would we even know each other? I mean, some of our best friendships right now have come through this credentialing process that I'm actually pretty critical of in most of my work. So, it's this duality, right? Of what do we gain in the practice as faith practitioners? What do we gain in that community? But thank you for the introduction, Bishop. So this stuff is stuff I've been talking about, but the interesting thing for me, this is all stuff that's happened here in the streets of Portland and in Oregon and in Washington that I've been talking to people about around the country. So it's weird to give a bunch of people who probably know the community better than me a report from their own streets. But that is my intention today. So I'm just going to get right to it. Nothing is more pretentious than a presenter who quotes from his own book. And from Dear Church, in the epilogue, I talk about this idea of being a chaplain to the revolution. And if you read any of my epilogues, that's like always what I'm doing, really. I never write about my street work. I'm only talking about it in very specific ways with you because this is an invitational keynote. All of you are within driving distance of me and these folks I'm going to tell you about and these organizations and these things that are happening. So for you, you get the very specific, this is actually what Lenny Duncan does other than push books at churches. And that's because I really respect your bishop. Like a whole lot. And she invited me. And so I like Melissa. There's other stars in this story, like Reverend Ron Werner, who you should never take advice from, by the way. And I'll explain exactly why I say that. And this is all a byproduct of the good, faithful work that you've done, your mission support dollars. This is all the stuff that happens around it, right? Right? We're so worried about butts and pews and, and baptism that we miss the things that grow around these good ministries like Melissa and others do within the Synod that I've run into, and I know the rest of you are. So let's just start. I'm actually referring to the first uprising in the Twin Cities, which is so crazy because when we read this, we think, oh, Lake Street Drive, he must be talking about George Floyd. But I'm actually talking about Philando Castile, right? And so really interesting, right? And you know, so in this epilogue, I'm actually talking about the uprisings around Philando and some other things that happened in the Twin Cities. But these words you could transpose right now, and this could be May 25th, 2020. And so I'm just going to read from it. They became briefly chaplains to the revolution. And honestly, is there ever a better job for the church? As a church leader, I can tell you the last thing this country needs is the church in charge of anything. Hear, hear. But a church that moves towards human suffering and solidarity with all the ways the divine expresses itself across cultures and social location. A church willing to walk on Lake Street in Minneapolis and call out through the tear gas, right? Hey, over here, you can find sanctuary. And that's a church worth living and dying for. Of course, I'm writing from a Black man's perspective. Not the strip mall and its destruction. And that's a country worth living and dying for. Not the strip mall and its destruction, or the bootjacks of racist policy structures the police have become in America, the communities that call out in solidarity to those experiencing oppression, the people who step out onto the streets and are willing to bleed for those they love, to die for their community. Those are who we are at our core, and why I love this country so much. The cunning thing about America is that the very fabric of it is that it could either be the protesters or the police for you. And where else has that been more prevalent than in the Pacific Northwest lately? When we talk about patriotism, are we even talking about the same republic anymore at times? It's become almost well, I can ramble on for that about forever, but God bless those who are waging peace in the battle for the soul of America. The words they call out are the sacred scripture of liberation and freedom that is written into every human heart. And that's actually, I think that's like the second night the Wall of Moms came out. If you were local, that picture right there. This picture right here is like week 1. They're not great pictures. And so today we're going to talk about building peace and waging peace, the life cycle of liberation model. It's this thing I've been talking about all around the country, and it's mostly I developed it getting my ass kicked in front of the Justice Center in Portland. So I figured this might be useful information for you guys. It's pretty contextual. This model is just based on a pretty simple premise that liberation is the goal. No anti-racist, anti-oppression model, lens, philosophy, training, or ethic is effective if that isn't the end goal. I would even go one step further. In my experience in any institution, whether it be a faith institution or anyone else, and I think faith institutions try more sincerely than most institutions. So I just want to put that on the table. I would say no anti-racist, anti-oppression model, lens, philosophy, or training or ethic is effective, period. How many times have someone dropped in and done training? How many times have you gone to a book club? How much more information do you need to know that something's either really wrong with this country or you're someone who is unmoved by that? And only you know when you put your head down on the table. You mean on the pillow? I sit on the table because I work so much. I'm like, oh, when you pass out writing too many books because you promise too much shit. Anyway, my point is, if liberation isn't the goal, then it's just not a good model. If that goes for your church, that goes for your book club, that goes for the people involved, and that goes for the people who are the most affected or you are trying to serve, right? The most impacted. If liberation isn't the goal, if it's not about like, how do we make sure that after we're done feeding you for a few months, we never have to feed you again and you can feed others. That's liberation. And if that's not the goal, then what you're doing may not be anti-oppression work, and it may not be anti-racism work. It might be a training, it might be a philosophy, but in the end, we know these things aren't effective. I'm sorry, who here has been to an anti-racism training in the ELCA? Please raise your hand. Anyone? Has it worked yet? Has it rubbed off? No, right? It hasn't, right? So being theologically, spiritually, morally, or politically informed by our individual place in the world may go a long way to self-actualization, but not collective liberation. I'm not poo-pooing education. I'm going to talk about its place in this model, right? Education is a great thing. I know people poo-poo the book club, but there's like, I think liberalism or progressivism rather has developed a anti-intellectual streak that frightens me in the way that they claim the other side has. They expect you to take wholesale concepts that may or may not hold up to the light of investigation, right? Just like any political thought. So, but knowing who you are is a great thing. Knowledge of oneself is the first step in a journey that's followed by now finding your place in a much vaster world no one ever considered. So yeah, waking up to your privilege, finding out your family's history. How many of y'all doing ancestral work? How many, dear God, white people, please do your ancestral work. My God, we know you didn't do it. So talk to the ancestors who did. We get it. It's not your fault. Damn it. Right? This is spiritual work. You're supposed to be spiritual leaders. You're supposed to be the sacred nard in your community. Be the nard. Put on the sackcloth. Where are the ashes? Anyway, that's all good stuff. But this model wants to take into account that only through a state of continuous liberation, maintained through an anti-racist, anti-oppression ethic or lifestyle, can you start to undo the work of empire, colonialism, and white supremacy, right? And how many of us know this in our core, right? You can, there's a difference between someone who is theologically incredible, but if they don't have discipleship, if they don't love the people, now we've seen pastors be a mix of both, but the extremes on either end are no good, right? And so what we're talking about is the same thing. How do we disciple people into an anti-racist lifestyle or ethic? This is not about one-time fixes. This is about like, how do we root our communities in that? So this is some of the stuff that's been working for me locally. And every once in a while, some organization brings me in to do it for like a year, and they don't take none of my suggestions. But, you know, some of the kids are changed, and some of the people who work there are changed, and progress is made, and shit happens. So what does that look like? That's a lot of fancy ass talk that might just be gobbledygook thought leader crap, right? That I'm going to sell in the book. So here's the deal. This is a community first model that centers the people, treats everyone not only as participants, but as practitioners. Lutherans are great at treating the people as participants. We hardly ever treat them like practitioners. If you would like a real life example of that, our people couldn't bury their dead. And because of our polity, they couldn't even break open bread, share wine, and recount the story of the night that Christ died together without feeling guilty about it. That's the difference between participant and practitioner. Having the ability to know how to bury their grandparents. Yes, they want you to come there afterwards, but to know what the words are, just to know to order the red book off the, no skills whatsoever. They were left bereft. Bereft of what? Us. And we took all the keys to the kingdom with us. I mean, it's our polity, it's our way. I understand the need for good order. We could argue about it all day, but I'm just saying there's a difference between participant and practitioner. And we want our people to be practitioners of anti-racism work. We want our people to be practitioners of anti-oppression work. We don't want them just to be participants where they join a book club and they give to the right people. So this creates care models based on clear power analysis, accountability systems, education, continuing education models, and community-based counter systems, all grounded in deep scriptural and cultural wisdom. So it looks a whole lot like old school community organizing in the 60s and 70s. If you are someone who has ever canvassed, if you have ever went to a emergent church, Jesus movement, church planting 101. If you ever worked for the Democratic Party, perhaps you had a different youth than me. You worked for the GOP and you were knocking on doors. This is just basic community organizing stuff, but these are the results that we're seeing here in Portland, in, hopefully, and really everywhere. I mean, we're doing stuff in Salem. I mean, we've been all over. I mean, during the wildfires, we were the first ones to organize and get supplies down there way before any of the churches responded. And in particular, working with Emerge and Alade and her group over there, we were the first ones to get relief to 96 migrant families through lines of white supremacists who were stopping us and trying and telling us that we were Antifa. And so they were going to kill us because we started the fire and all that weird stuff. We had to, so not only did we have to get the supplies, find the families, coordinate with churches to make sure they were safe, but then some of our teams had to like work through lines of people who were just politically activated and trying to stop us from feeding those people or bringing relief. So that's the kind of stuff we're seeing. Anyway, so the model is building peace versus waging peace. How do I know where my community is? It's real simple. May 25th, 2020. You either started a book club a couple weeks later, or you got a phone call from one of your people, or you were one of the people calling, and you said, Pastor, where are you? Or you got a call, Pastor, where are you? We're out here. And that's how you know if your people are at building peace versus waging peace. What was their response to last year? Was it to mobilize? Was it to get out and go see for themselves? Were they curious? Were they angry? If they were angry, why were they angry? Right? What was their response to that? Right? Or were they on the streets and you had some incredible, because it's always a mixed bag, right? Thank God for the people of God. Right? You've had some other folks who were just out on the streets so much that like you're afraid that they're going to die or their life is going to fall apart, or they might have serious psychological, spiritual, and or physical damage from their protesting. It might be the other extreme. So you know what happened. You know where your people are by how they responded that day. And if you weren't in a leadership position, you were in your community. So remember how the people around you responded. What were your friends like, right? What sort of emails did you get? Were you jumped on a chain of people who said, this is what we're doing, meet us here and we'll be there at this time, right? Or were you more kind of figuring out like what's happening and trying to get as much information, that you could? Both of these are two sides of the same cycle. I want to tell you that organizers who shame people about where they were on that day are not the kind of people that I mess with. I live by the principle, you get to start where you get to start. Who am I to steal your journey? My God, if you just investigate one or two of the threads I give you today and you unravel them yourself, I guarantee you'll be so pissed off, you'll hate me forever. You'll never want to talk to me again because you'll find, just like anyone who's ever started the work for the first time, and I'm talking to the people who've just never really dug into the work. And I'm talking about the work of dismantling white supremacy, so we're clear. If you've never dug into that work, right? The first, I could just give you a few threads to unravel on your own with your own research, with the skills many of you already have in your wonderful lives. And you will be outraged before you pull three of the threads loose. I won't even have to talk to you ever again. So there's nothing wrong with that being in that place in the journey. And to shame you in the midst of that is wrong. On the other hand, if you keep being presented with opportunities to lower your defenses and your disposition to another group of human beings for half a second and perhaps see the imago Dei inside them and realize that the truth might be closer to in between what we both think is the truth, and you're willing to walk towards that, right? Or you're not. Well, that's really the journey. That's it. Can you lower your disposition to me or to someone else or to other people just enough to imagine God might be alive, that she might be kicking ass inside them? Right? Can you do it? And it's hard, and it's getting harder, right? The whole point of that is that's how you know where your community is. I'm going to assume a lot of you were in the place where you had to build peace. You had to do a lot of education. You had to do a lot of, if you were a council member, you were called to council meetings you did not expect. If you were a pastor, you had to explain things that you thought we had explained in 1984. Hi, how are you? If you were, if you were someone who just honestly didn't know and thought they had done enough and was really caught off guard, God bless you. That's a design of the system. That's not a bug. That's a feature. I'm going to repeat that again. If you found yourself completely blindsided by May 25th, 2020, and the death and murder of George Floyd by Derek Chauvin, as proven in the court of law in front of a jury of his peers, well, that is not a bug of you, your personality, or your morality. That is a feature of the system. And what the system does is it convinces you that you're the bug in the system. Well, I didn't know. I didn't do enough. How could I? When it never reveals how that's part of the design. You were not supposed to know. It can't function with good people knowing. That's why good people didn't know. So when we talk about building peace, we're talking about continuing education models for creating an anti-racist ethic and leaders in your community. Education is only as good as the praxis. So creating models to help educate and liberate peoples is only organizing scaffolding, as I call it. So what does that mean? We don't want to educate all our people about the history of white supremacy. I think it's a great idea. There is a wonderful HBO special about the history of colonialism that will curl your toes. It's called Kill the Brutes. And it will it's one of the best sourced. Look, it's one of my favorite documentarians. I'm not going to fangirl too much in front of you, but it's his epic, right? It's the person who brought you I Am Not Your Negro. Right? And it's his epic. This is the thing he's been working his whole life to say. This is the story. It's the history of colonialism. And it will curl your toes. No. We can't give our people all that. That's your job. You're a leader. And I'm not talking about if you're ordained. I'm talking about you're a leader. You're here right now. You're a leader. I said you're a leader. There, it's over. Stop dilly-dallying and just do something. Okay? That's the first thing. If you've been waiting your whole life for someone to say it, I said it. There. You're a leader and God's proud of you. But we need more. We need just a little bit more. And I'm so sorry, but these are the times we are in. And the times make the people. Anyway, organizational scaffolding is educating people just enough to burn them up. Here's a question that Tori Glass recommends in her publication, which is a white homework at toriglass.com. You can purchase this educational stuff. It will burn up your people because it puts the whole thing on them. It says the first, one of the lessons is, can you figure out how many people are in the county jail? No. I'm not asking you if county jails are racist, if policing is racist, if the prison system is racist. No. class, your only job today is to figure out how many people are actually in our county jail. And watch the answers that start coming back. Watch the roadblocks. I mean, and even your most conservative members are going to be like, why won't they tell me what my tax dollars are going towards? I mean, they're the ones who actually get the most infuriated. Your progressives are like, oh man, I expected that phone call. But it's really the conservatives who get fired up. They're like, why won't they give me basic answers about my county? And then I found out that my senator's able to use those people as more votes, even though they don't get a vote. So his seat is more bigger and the district is bigger. Like they start freaking out, right? They're the ones who actually start digging because they want to prove you wrong, because they always want to play stump the leader. So like ToryGlass.com gives lots of opportunities like that. But education's not about giving them the whole damn enchilada, right? That's not educating people to the point where we're going to get them to action. And one thing that the Lutheran Church suffers from is a little bit of how shall I put it? Over intellectualization. My God, if there were a people who thought they could think their way into the kingdom of God, it is the Lutheran Church. My Lord, how many more treaties do we need? We don't, they're talking about writing a new thing for sex again. Just stop writing things. That'd be the first thing. We probably all get laid more. Like, it's a real drag every time you guys publish one of these. Jeez. So like, why we think too much. Like we need a more, and what we want to encourage is an action reflection model. So anyone who's ever done clinical pastoral education, you will recognize this model. And what we're really doing is we're offering our folks the opportunity to be a CPE or a para CPE or chaplaincy class for the street. And just like in CPE, you would not just send them out there on the streets without any education, right? And no one told you. And if you did CPE, which is part of the ordination process where they make you serve inside a medical facility sometimes it's a psychiatric facility, but you serve and you're the person who sometimes has to give people the worst news of their life. Or sometimes you're just hanging out with the kids and it's awkward because no one wants to talk to the weird pastor dude, right? Or like you do all kinds of things, right? But no one when you're getting that education, they don't hand you a book. They give you a beeper and they say, when this thing goes off, you show up where it tells you to go and I'll see you later. And that's really it, and we want to give people enough organizing scaffolding, enough education to know what they're doing, not be harmed. You can walk with them. You can help them in these situations, right? But we don't want to sit around and have another book club. Thank you. Black people have already told you, we don't need your book clubs. We have our own. Stop having them. I mean, just have enough to agitate them is my point. Anyway, in the beginning of the cycle, you want to accentuate problems, challenges. You want to have listening sessions with the community and deep understanding of context to ignite action and not belay it. How I encourage you do that is that you and everyone who's ever on your team or your anti-oppression team, all of you make a 90-day plan. Any mission developer out there, tell them that all their training was not a waste. You can tell the network that I still use the 90-day plan and I actually have organizers do it all the time. So you may recognize this if you've ever been part of a mission or you've ever been part of a new start or a new ministry, but a 90-day plan is just basically laying out what you're going to do for the next 90 days. A simple one is that you and everyone on your team will have a one-on-one, which is a one-on-one conversation with one political, business, and one community leader in your area with just some real leading questions. Hey man, things are real crazy right now, COVID. And like, what's the biggest gap that you're seeing, like, not being served? Right? Real easy question, right? Or you could, but you don't want to start there, right? I'm just always horny for the organizing. You can't be horny for the organizing team. You have to build relationship. So the first question is, hey man, you're still out here. Hey sis. Hey queer. Hey friend. Hey human. Hey, you're still out here. It's 2 years later. You're getting your butt kicked and you're still out here doing X, Y, Z. How are you holding up? And can you tell me a little bit how you even ended up here in Portland? Because not everyone's from Portland. I'm just using Portland as an example. Like, whatever. Get to know them, find out what they're excited about, see where the energy is. You guys know this stuff. You do it all the time. It's called friendship. It's called community. It's only in seminary where they sell it to you. So, like you do that stuff, right? You build that relationship, and then you just ask the questions. What's the biggest gap you're seeing right now? Right? If you're doing anti-oppression work and anti-racism, wow, man, the uprisings have been real wild lately. How's that been affecting you, business leader, political leader, on the ground activist? Right? You ask all three of these folks the same question, and you have everyone have these conversations with different folks, right? That way, after 90 days, you should have a real good idea on what you need to educate yourself on. Damn, everyone brought up these 3 homeless encampments within 1 mile of me. Every single person we all talked to. We probably need to stop using the term homeless, start figuring out about houseless rights, and get to know these people, right? So what you do is you use these one-on-ones to start to build a model, right? A community-based curriculum based on agreed upon power analysis, right? This is the result, hopefully. Curriculum visioning activity. Address the unique contextual needs that you'll be serving in. What historically oppressed communities do you need to build capacity and knowledge base of? What challenges are they facing today? What would your community need to know about these communities to safely accompany them on their journey towards liberation? How could you show someone else the path or the road you took easily? How do you pass it on? Like, it's great. I love these like unicorns to create these incredible ministries that no one else can replicate, but damn, can you throw a bone to the rest of us? We'd really like to see some of that stuff happen where we are, right? So is what you're doing replicatable? Can anyone else do it? Because if anyone else can't do it, it's useless. Thank you. I mean, it's great. We're happy. We're going to fund it. We're going to love it. We're going to show up. But like it's not useless to the cause. It's useless to the cause right now. Right. And so overall, can you teach others what you learned easily? And that is how we create curriculum that's based on the needs of the community. And we're not just, oh, everyone's reading Ibrahim X. Let's all run over there now. Oh, everyone's reading Dear Church again, right? Let's read that again. Oh, everyone's reading this again. Oh, no, everyone's doing this. Like, come on. What are we doing? Right? That's not how we organize people. Are you trying to organize people towards liberation? Or are you just trying to keep like the progressives off your back and not make too much heat so the conservatives don't bother you? Because if that's what you're doing, I mean, you can split the difference as long as you want. It's not working out well. Just saying, like overall, the forecast for that's like real low, right? Like real low for good weather. So, this is what we do, right? And I think I'm going to take a break in a little bit, but that's my point. This is why you have those one-on-ones, right? So use this to establish commitment level. And this is the final point, and then we'll take a break. You have to create easy on-ramps and easy off-ramps and easy on-ramps. Right? You can't sign. One of my favorite memes right now, and I actually should have put it in a presentation, but then I got worried you guys wouldn't take me seriously. One of my favorite memes right now was like this girl in a military uniform just crying with a AK in her hand. And she's got really nice makeup and really done hair. And on the top of the meme, it says, all I wanted was healthcare for poor people and for police to stop shooting Black people. And she's like, right, we're not signing people up for revolutions, is my point. What we need to figure out and we need to establish is people's commitment level. I want to sign people up for revolution, but they may not have that same commitment level as I have, right? Some people may not be unworried about their career or reputation, like I am unworried about my career or reputation. So, I'm quite unbothered, but not everyone is there yet. And so we want to respect where everyone is. So one of the things that people never ask themselves when they start this work is, how far are you willing to go? You, personally. What's that look like? You say you want to be arrested. Have you ever been arrested? Have you? Have you ever been alone with a cop and see how they talk to you in that situation? It might be different. It might be different than you've ever experienced. right? If you're committed to support your people and your friends and your community while they're out there, are you putting aside a bail fund? Who are the lawyers in the community who are going to work pro bono? Is the parish nurse willing to train people to be medics? So at least when they're marching with their friends, they can help someone and get them more help. Right? How far are you willing to go? And no one's here to judge your commitment level. Hi, parents who are right now going through it. The US government has decided they don't care about your kids. And my heart breaks every day for you. Right? Right? These are tough times and people have to make very serious decisions about their families and their futures. So no one's here to judge people's commitment level. Again, I think that stuff's gross. Right? We got half the country can't even go out of the house half the time because when they have a head cold, they're concerned that their children might get sick and die. Right? But how far are you willing to go? And then the real question that only a leader can ask themselves, right? How far is my community at large willing to follow me? Man, have I overshot the mark on this one. Woo-wee! I have a career littered with situations like this. Wow. Because I could pick them every time too. I'm like, we're gonna go all the way. And like I often forget other people just haven't had the same experiences as me. Or perhaps aren't as committed to me to some of the things we say we believe. When I find myself out in the limb. And so this is why you do these kind of assessments, right? This is all about your well-being and the community's well-being. You don't want to take a community past a point you know it can't go to prove a point. What is that? Is that leadership? That's not leadership. That's you grandstanding. Maybe you're going to write a book or get some Twitter followers or some shit. I don't know what you're going to do. That's grandstanding. I'm not saying you don't push them to new places. I'm saying when you overshoot the mark intentionally and you know it. And lots of kids who want to go out there and be the rebel pastor, they do it all the time. All the time. And I've done it. And I've hurt communities doing it. Right? That's how I know. That's the only way I wake up. I usually don't care what happens to me. My good friend, the Reverend Sarah Rosna, always says. She says, I never care about what happens to me, but I always care when other people are hurt. And, so this is important stuff. How far will my team go? How far will those who are the closest to what you're doing will go? What's their lives look like? My God, if Billy wakes up and becomes an anti-racist leader, is Billy going to get arrested and his 2-year-old kid not going to have anywhere to live because Billy lost his job at you know what I mean? Like, you have to think about the consequences in people's lives. Right. And then the last question, am I serving white guilt or black and brown communities? I'm sorry, we don't need you to serve your white guilt anymore. Like, we get it. Like, shit's fucked up. I'm just going to say it like that. And yeah, we all got a part to play in it. Right? We all got stuff we did. We got stuff we regret, and we got stuff we wish we did more. But now's not the time for that. Now's the time to dig deep, like Black people have had it done for 400 years, and like almost, Indigenous folks have had to do for a couple hundred before that. I'm gonna dig deep for a second, right? And ask yourself, right? What am I serving? And if you are of one of these Black or brown communities, the question is, how am I serving myself care and love? Because the pain to those practicing this stuff, I'm much less interested in anti-oppression models like this that I put together, and I'm much more interested in the care of those who are living these already. Right? Because I think the time for waking people up might be, I don't know, the hour's getting late kind of feeling. I don't know. I don't want to keep quoting a bunch of rock and roll to you. I'm going to give you a break. So community mapping through one-on-ones, these are the big points. So you could just take a picture of this and you could take all those ramblings down to like 3 bullet points. Don't you love that? When I finally figured out I had ADHD, man, did the presentations get better. Anyway, so community mapping through one-on-ones, revolutionary relationship building, right? Asset mapping and looking at your assets like living reparations. Living reparations. How do people show up and be reparations to the community? Living reparations to whatever community in your area needs to be the most served. Right? In the end, we want to center local leadership in our discussions, and we want to have long-term leadership development. Right? Right? There's a couple local leaders in the area. There's one who right now is just a school board president, I think, over in Gresham. But I know she's a real shot for a local Senate seat. And I know she's a hell of an organizer. And I know people in your Senate who've been working with her. Right. And so like this leadership development becomes part of it too. Right. How do you become the chaplain to someone like that? Right. How do you influence those halls of power eventually? Right. You invest early on. You don't show up late to the game with a list of demands and problems you have. Right. We raise leaders up. We don't call them out. So on ramps and off ramps and counter system building in the wake. So the on ramps and off ramps, easy on ramps and easy off ramps. What's that look like? Don't sign people up for everything. Sign them up for something they can get done in 90 days, get back to you and spend some time reflecting on. We're going to go out for 30 days and make sure we provide, let's say there's protests happening, water, medical supplies, spiritual direction that will maybe cover the cost of for some of the protesters and leaders, and psychiatric care when and where we can provide it, whatever resources you have, right? We're just going to go out there. We're going to give out our card. We're going to pick out 3 things that we're going to provide. And we're going to be the people with those 3 things, whether it's water, gas masks, and subsidized medical care, or it's water. I always say water, or it's water, you know what I mean? And like connections to the ACLU and a list of lawyers in your congregation that'll do pro bono work, right? You know what I mean? Like whatever it is, you go out and you provide those 3 things consistently, right? Right. And then you do it for 90 days and then you bring everyone back in. You never let anyone go over the 100-day mark. And we will talk about the danger of the 100-day mark after our break. There is a real danger. And this is actually about chaplaincy. Right. And so I always tell people the first part, because particularly the pastor types, the clerical types, they love the how we get people motivated part. But I want to talk a little bit more about what we've seen, what's been built in the wake of that, and more vision for the future than how we respond. But at the end of the day, you want to make sure that it's always easy on ramps and off ramps. I mean, sometimes it's so stupid. I need 50 people to give me $50 a month for 1 year so we can go out there and provide care for or bridge building and theological relationship gap filling between XYZ group, right? Like little things, easy things that people can jump in on, right? Oh, you just need me to get $50 a month to that for a year? I can absolutely do that. Right. That's how, you apply not only that to fundraising, you apply that to everything you invite folks into. And then you give them time to reflect on it. You give them time to teach you what they learned. Because they are no longer participants, they're practitioners now. Right. And that's what all this education is like trying to get them ready for. So we're trying to create a real good roadmap for them before we send them out. We're going to take a break and we're going to come back and maybe listen to either, I don't know, Earth, Wind, and Fire or something. We're going to get the Wiggles out. So if you got to turn off the screen so you can get your dance on, I'd rather you dance free. So I'll see you in 5 minutes, Bishop. Is that okay?
5 minutes.
All right. And then we'll come back and get the Wiggles out and we'll try and finish this up and get to the Q&A.
Great. 12:51. See you all back.